Welcome to Audiobook de Morgan. Today's reading is Chapter 6 of the Bruce Chatwin book, Utz. But before we start, please subscribe by pressing the button and give us a like. Thank you. His face was immediately forgettable. It was a round face, waxy in texture, without a hint of the passions beneath its surface, set with narrow eyes behind steel-framed spectacles. A face so featureless it gave the impression of not being there. Did he have a moustache? I forget. Add a moustache. Subtract a moustache. Nothing would alter his utterly nondescript appearance. Supposing, then, we had a moustache. A precise, bristly moustache to go with the precise, toy solderish gestures that were the only evidence of his Teuton ancestry. He had combed his hair in greasy snakes across his scalp. He wore a suit of striped grey worsted slightly frayed at the cuffs, and had doused himself with Minutes 10 cologne. On reflection, I think I'd better withdraw the moustache. To add a moustache might so overwhelm the face that nothing would linger in the memory but the spectacles and moustache, with a few drops of paprika-coloured fish soup adhering to it. Across our table at the restaurant, Stro. Stro is Czech for trout, and trout there were. The cadences of the trout quintet flowed methodically through hidden speakers and shoals of trout, pink, freckled, their undersides shimmering in the neon, swam this way and that way in an aquarium which occupied most of one wall. "You will eat trout," said Utz. I had called him on the day of my arrival, but at first he seemed reluctant to see me. Ja, I know it, but it will be difficult. On the advice of my friend, I had brought from London some packets of his favourite Earl Grey tea. I mentioned these. He relented and asked me to luncheon. On the Thursday, the day before I was due to leave, not, as I'd hoped, at his flat, but in a restaurant. The restaurant, a relic of the 30s in an arcade off Wenceslas Street, had a machine-aged decor of plate glass, chromium and leather. A model galleon with sails of billow and parchment hung from the ceiling. One wondered, glancing at the photo of Comrade Neutschoi, how a man with so disagreeable a mouth would consent to being photographed at all. The head waiter, sweltering in the July heat, offered each of us a menu that resembled a medieval missal. We were expecting the arrival of Utz's friend, Dr. Orlik, with whom he had lunched here on Thursdays since 1946. Orlik, he told me, is an illustrious scientist from our National Museum. He is a paleontologist. His speciality is the mammoth, but he is also experienced in flies. You will enjoy him. He is full of jokes and charm. We did not have long to wait before a gaunt, bearded figure in a shiny, double-breasted suit pushed its way through the revolving doors. Orlik removed his beret, revealing a mass of wiry salt and pepper hair, and sat down. His hand, rather a crustacean claw than a hand, gave mine a painful nip and moved on to attack the pretzels. His forehead was scowled with deep furrows. I stared with amazement at the seesaw motion of his jaw. "Ah, ha," he leered at me. "English." "He?" "Englishman." Yes. Tell me, is Professor Horsfield still living?" "Who's Professor Horsfield?" I asked. "He wrote kind words about my article in the Journal of Animal Psychology." "When was that?" 1935, he said. maybe 36. I've never heard of Horsfield. A pity, said Horlick. He was an illustrious scientist. He paused to crunch the remaining pretzel. His green eyes glinted with a playful malice. Normally, he continued, I do not have high regard for your compatriots. You betrayed us at München. You betrayed us at Yalta. Utz, alarmed by his dangerous turn to the conversation, interrupted and said solemnly, I cannot believe that animals have souls. How can you say that? Orlick snapped. I say it. I know you say it. I know not how you can say it. I will order, said Utz, who waved his napkin like a flag of truce at the head waiter. I will order trout. Au bleu, isn't it? Blah, Orlick bantered. Blah yourself. Orlick tugged at my sleeve. My friend Mr. Utz here believes that the trout, when it is immersed in boiling water, does not feel more than a tickling. That is not my opinion. There are no trout, said the head waiter. What can you mean, no trout, said Utz. There are trout, many trout. There is no net. What do you mean, no net? Last week there was a net. It's broken. Broken? I do not believe. The head waiter put a finger to his lips and whispered, These trout are reserved. For them? Them, he nodded. 4 fat men were eating trout at a nearby table. Very well, said Utz. I will eat eels. You also will eat eels. I will, I said. There are no eels, said the waiter. No eels? This is bad. What have you? We have carp. Carp only? Carp. How shall you cook these carp? Many ways, the waiter gestured to the menu. Which way you like? The menu was multilingual, in Czech, Russian, German, French, and English. But whoever had compiled the English page had mistaken the word carp for crap. Under the heading Crap Dishes, the list contained crap soup with paprika, stuffed crap, crap cooked in beer, fried crap, crap balls, crap à la jouet. In England, I said, this fish is called carp. Crap has a different meaning. Oh, said Dr. Orlick, what meaning? Feces, I said. Shit. I regretted saying this because Utz looked exceedingly embarrassed. The narrow eyes blinked as if he hoped he hadn't heard correctly. Orlick's wheezy carapace shook with laughter. Ah, ha, he jeered. Crap à la jouie. My friend Mr. Utz will eat crap à la jouie. I was afraid Utz was going to leave, but he rose above his discomfiture and ordered soup and the carpe menoir. I took the line of least resistance and ordered the same. Orlick clamoured in his loud and crackly voice, No, no, I will eat crap à la juive. And to begin? Asked the waiter. Nothing, said Orlick, only the crap. I tried to swing the conversation to Utz's collection of porcelain. His reaction was to swivel his neck inside his collar and say blankly, Dr. Orlick is also a collector, but he is a collector of flies. Flies? Flies, assented Orlick. I began to perform a mental picture of his lodgings. The unmade bed and unemptied ashtrays, the avalanche of yellow periodicals, the microscope, the killing jars, and lining the walls, glass-fronted cases containing flies from every corner of the globe, each specimen pierced with a pin. I mentioned some beautiful dragonflies I had seen in Brazil. Dragonflies? Orlick frowned. I have no interest. I only have interest for Musca domestica. The common housefly? That is what it is. Answer me, Utz interrupted again. On which day did God create the fly? Day 5 or day 6? How many times will I tell you? Orlick clamoured. We have 190 million years of flies, but you will always speak of days. Hard words, said Utz, philosophically. A fly had landed on the tablecloth and was sopping up some soup that the waiter had let fall from the ladle. With a flick of the wrist, Orlick upturned a glass tumbler and trapped the insect beneath it. He slid the glass to the edge of the table and transferred the fly to the killing jar he took from his pocket. There was an angry buzzing, then silence. He flourished a magnifying glass and scrutinized the victim. Interesting example, he said. Hatched, I would say, in the kitchen here. I will ask. You will not ask, said Utz. I will ask. You will not. And what, I asked, brought you and the housefly together? Expelling carp bones through his beard, Orlick described how he had devoted 30 years to studying certain aspects of the whole of the woolly mammoth, a labour which had taken him to the tundras of Siberia, where mammoths are occasionally found deep frozen in permafrost. The fruit of these researches, though he was usually too modest to mention it, had culminated in his magisterial paper, The Mammoth and His Parasites. But no sooner was it published than he felt the need to study some lowlier creature. I chose, he said, to study Musca domestica within the Prague metropolitan area. Just as his friend Mr. Utz could tell at a glance whether a piece of Meissen porcelain was made from the white clay of Colditz or the white clay of Erzingenberg, he, Orlick, having examined under a microscope the iridescent membrane of a fly's wing, claimed to know if the insect came from Malstrana or Zivesky Misto, or from one of the garbage dumps that now encircled the new garden city. He confessed to being enchanted by the vitality of the fly. It was fashionable among his fellow entomologists, especially the party members, to applaud the behaviour of the social insects, the ants, bees, wasps, and other varieties of Hymenoptera, which organised themselves into regimented communities. But the fly, said Orlick, is an anarchist. Shh, said Utz. You not say that word. What word? That word. Yes, Orlick pitched his voice an octave higher. I will say it. The fly is an anarchist. He is an individualist. He is a Jean one. The four fat party members at whom this outburst was directed were far too busy to notice. They were ogling their second helping of trout, whose flesh, at that moment, the waiter was easing off the bone and blue skin. I am not from the people, Orlick said. I have noble blood. Oh, said Utz. Which nobility? I thought for a moment that lunch was going to end in a slanging match, until I realised that this was another of their well-rehearsed duets. There followed a discussion on the merits, or otherwise, of Kafka, whom Utz revered as a Demerge and Orlick dismissed as a fraud. It was right for his books to be abolished. Banned, you mean? I said. Censored? I do not mean, said Orlick. I said abolished. Paff, paff! Utz flapped his hand. What foolishness is this? Orlick's case against Kafka was the doubtful entomological status of the insect in the story Metamorphosis. Again, I thought we were in for trouble. Again, the brouhaha simmered down. We drank a cup of anemic coffee. Orlick extracted from me my London address, scribbled it on a scrap of paper napkin, rolled it into a pellet, and put it in his pocket. He intercepted the bill and waved it in Utz's face. I will pay, he announced. You will not pay. I will. I must. You will not, said Utz, who snatched at the paper Orlick held for him to snatch. Orlick's eyelids dropped in acquiescence. Ah, he nodded gloomily, I know it. Mr. Utz will pay. And now, Utz turned to me, you will permit me to show you some monuments of our beautiful city. And now that concludes chapter 6. If you enjoyed the reading, please leave your comments. And please also don't forget to check out the other chapters that preceded this.